Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. We will open today's service with these words from UU Minister Megan Dowdell. We enter this meeting house for kindness and comfort. May rough, worn hands and aching backs be healed. We enter this meeting house of hope for equality. May those who labor to survive live to know justice. We enter this meeting house of love and vocation. May our bonds of solidarity be strengthened. We enter this meeting house of courage and friendship. May we proceed hand in hand toward freedom. And now, may we say our chalice lighting words together in unison. We kindle this flame, symbol of our faith, for the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of love that calls us to work for justice.
Good morning. Am I on? Ooh, no. Okay. My name's Lynn Demuth, and I'm your song leader today with Linda Horton on piano. I hope you put your singing hats on today. We have a lot of great labor movement and union music today, and it requires some gusto, so be prepared. Our first hymn, though, is a familiar one, Guide My Feet. So please rise in body or spirit and sing with me. Guide my feet.
Be seated. Hello again. I'm Mr. Ken St. John, so he, him, sir. And I am here to welcome you to Valley Unitarian Universalist Congregation. Welcome to everyone on YouTube, everyone on Zoom, and everyone here in the sanctuary. And let's take this moment now for the sanctuary crowd and the Zoom gallery to wave and say hello. I'm told this happens simultaneously, so we can wave to camera 3, smile at and say hello. Yay. All right, now, our lay pastoral care associates this morning are Carlin Knight, who is with us in the sanctuary, and Janet Cantley in the Zoom gallery. They will both be on call this week for anyone who's troubled and in need of someone to talk to. Although it seems unlikely, some of us may be among the 1% of Americans who possess nearly 1/3 of the nation's wealth. Or we may have little or no income and be sustained by government welfare programs. We would all be welcome here. If you achieved an advanced degree, associate degree, or no college education at all, you are welcome here. If you are employed by the government, a corporation, small business, nonprofit, or if you're self-employed or unemployed, you are welcome here. You may be an executive manager, an assembly line worker, or a janitor. All are welcome here, and your work matters. I'd like to extend an especially warm welcome to you first-time visitors or infrequent guests who are with us today. If you're new on Zoom, please use the chat feature to let your presence be known to the rest of the gallery. And any newcomers in the sanctuary are invited to stand briefly as you are able so that the rest of us can greet you warmly right now. Any visitors? Thank you. It's always a pleasure to see you. After the service, there will be opportunities to meet in small groups, both online and in person, including a coffee reception here in the sanctuary and a welcome circle at the back of the room, and then breakout rooms on Zoom. Also, if you missed your opportunity on the way in, we have petitions to sign in support of public schools that'll be out on the patio. Look for Ann Schneider and Eileen Garces out on the patio after the service for that. Lynn?
This next song might be new to you. It was to me. Bread and Roses is a poem written and published by James Oppenheim in 1911. He was inspired by a line given in a speech by American women suffragist Helen Todd. In 1912, the phrase bread and roses became associated with the textile strike in Lawrence, Massachusetts. This strike was led mostly by women and united dozens of immigrant communities under the leadership of the industrial workers of the world. We need bread for sustenance of our bodies, yes, but also roses of dignity, beauty, and hope for the sustenance of our souls. Please rise in body or spirit and sing with me.
Sounded pretty good for an unfamiliar song. This is our time to enter a period of centering and reflection. I invite you to quietly light a candle along the east wall or arrange some stones in the nook here to my left as I recite this poem titled Sabbath by Wendell Berry, which Reverend Sarah has recommended for us today. After the poem will be a meditative musical selection. How long does it take to make the woods? As long as it takes to make the world. The woods are present as the world is, the presence of all its past and of all its time to come. It is always finished, it is always being made. The act of its making forever greater than the act of its destruction. It is a part of eternity, for its end and beginning belong to the end and beginning of all things. The beginning lost in the end in the beginning. What is the way to the woods? How do you get there? By climbing up through the 6 days' field. Kept in all the body's years, the body's sorrow, weariness, and joy, by passing through the narrow gate on the far side of that field, where the pasture grass of the body's life gives way to the high, original standing of the trees, by coming into the shadow of the grace of the straight ways ending, the shadow of the mercy of light. Why must the gate be narrow? Because you cannot pass beyond it burdened. To come in among these trees, you must leave behind the 6 days world. All of it, all of its plans and hopes. You must come without weapon or tool, alone, expecting nothing, remembering nothing, into the ease of sight, the brotherhood of eye and leaf.
We're going to sing one more step for justice and fairness. So please stay seated as we sing. One more step, we will take one more step till there is peace for us and everyone. We'll take one more step. One more word, we will say one more word till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word. One more prayer, we will say one more prayer till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer. One more song, we will sing one more song till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song.
Thank you, Linda. I have an engineering degree and worked as a salaried employee at large and small technology corporations for my entire career. What would I know about the labor movement other than what I've read in Steinbeck novels? My first engineering job was with Boeing Aerospace. The Boeing company was one of the few where engineers were unionized. Although I never took an active part or even joined the union, I was still covered under their negotiated contract. All I remember of its impact on me was that I was not allowed to use any tools in the prototype lab. That was someone else's job because of union rules, which seemed a little silly to me at the time. I've known Labor Day as an extra day of leisure for me. I remember noticing as I went out for a Monday holiday ride with the bike club, though, that the usual corners still had the usual number of day laborers waiting for work. That seemed unfair, that a software guy like me got to go relax and enjoy Labor Day, while the people who did hard labor for a living still had to work. Why weren't they celebrating? I'm guessing that tomorrow, most of the festive backyard barbecues will be serenaded by the ubiquitous sound of gas-powered lawn and garden tools. Landscapers are an enormous part of the labor pool in our community, but I bet they'll be working tomorrow. But thinking about labor also tends to remind me of the vast income and wealth disparity that exists in the U.S. Free market capitalism has made us the wealthiest nation ever, but it's not well distributed. The 1%ers possess about a third of all the wealth, 10%ers own over 2/3. At the same time, a substantial number of people live in poverty. Now, I'm no macroeconomist, and capitalism is a big topic to tackle, so I'm going to narrow my reflection down to something I know a little more about: corporate hierarchy. Now, hierarchy, like bureaucracy, is not an inherently bad word. Each has their proper application. Organizations need to be organized. And a hierarchical structure is an especially good way to manage decision-making in large organizations, and an effective way to get the job done, to manage complex projects that involve hundreds or thousands of participants. Everyone has a job to do, and each person contributes to accomplishing the organization's goal. What's hard to escape in this distribution of labor is that somebody's job is going to be to decide how much money each employee gets paid. And that falls on the management team. So naturally, there's going to be a tendency to conclude that management is a vocation that clearly deserves higher pay than any others. How could it not? It seems like that might contribute to the vast pay disparity we see between the CEO and the factory worker. But what always bugged me most was this sense of superiority that's inferred from a hierarchy. The idea that higher-ups were inherently more intelligent, wise, or skilled than those lower on the org chart. Long-standing traditions. There's been long-standing traditions for one group to look down their noses at another group. Managers versus individual contributors. Engineers and technicians. Doctors to nurses. Exempt and non-exempt, or salaried versus hourly employees. Some overtly use the term superior and subordinate. And it's a social stratification that I don't think needs to be there. So as an example, at Boeing Aerospace in the early 1980s, the large campus was enclosed with a high fence for security. Managers were permitted to drive through the gate and park in the lots adjacent to the offices and manufacturing facilities, while the rest of us had to park in a vast parking lot outside the fence and hike our way in. They also had a separate cafeteria for management, as though they didn't want to dine with the riffraff. On the plus side, I've seen signs that progress can be made. Boeing Aerospace is an old-school corporation, and many of the upper managers were former Air Force officers, where strict hierarchy is essential. But Intel Corporation, a newer high-tech company that I worked for many years, strives to be egalitarian, an egalitarian meritocracy. Everyone is treated equally and paid in proportion to their contribution, and I think they've had some success at that. One morning, for example, I traveled to the headquarters in Santa Clara, California, and that had me reaching the office around 10 a.m. which meant I had to find a place to park in the overflow lot across the street from the main campus. And on the hike in from there, I found myself walking behind Intel's CEO, Andy Grove. I don't know why he was so late, but I knew why he had to make that long walk, same as me. Another day, I found myself shoulder to shoulder with Dr. Grove, grazing the salad bar in the company cafeteria. And on another flight to Santa Clara, my seatmate in coach class was the Chief Operating Officer and future CEO, Craig Barrett, who chatted with me about an article I was reading in a trade journal. Those experiences made me feel, in a small way, more like an equal to those billionaires. As a manager myself, I know that there were engineers who did earn more than their supervisors because their contribution was judged more valuable to the success of the team. All right, one last story from my work experience. There was a man who worked at Intel in Chandler. He was well known as being outgoing and friendly, and he had an eccentric sedan. His car was completely covered in stickers and markings and glued-on objects, including a briefcase attached to the roof above the driver door. It was hilarious. I can't remember his name, but he was known by all for that car. And I recall being at a company-sponsored community service project, painting rooms at a small school in South Phoenix, and seeing the exotic car guy go walking up to a group of sweaty landscapers who were taking a shade break nearby. He offered each of them a cigarette and sat down on the ground and spent his break time visiting with them. I wondered, why weren't the rest of us comfortable doing that? If I were a smoker, would I be more congenial? I just kept flocking together with birds whose feathers looked like mine. Maybe all it takes is one small common interest to reach across those social layers and relate to people who seem different. And I suspect that we all have a lot more in common than the powers that be would have us believe. Now, this morning we have a guest in the pulpit, one who knows a lot more than me about organized labor. So please welcome Joe Murphy, who is a member of the AFL-CIO.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me here. My name is Joe Murphy. I'm the Political and Legislative Director for the Arizona AFL-CIO, and I am the son of a landscaper myself, so thank you for that, Ken. I want to talk to you this morning about an experience I had in the year 2020, but first we have to go back to the year 2010. A man named Chris was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Now, think back to 2010, a lot of phones still had cords on them and were attached to a wall. And even today, while it's not unheard of to hear of someone who doesn't have a personal computer or a laptop at home, it's even more likely that someone didn't have that. So Chris went to prison, 10 years, 2010. He got let out in 2020, the middle of a pandemic, being separated from American society for that long. And he was told by his probation officer, you have to do two things by the time the sun goes down. You have to find a place to live, and you have to find a job. So he knew the first place to go. He went to a church. They gave him a place to live. The second place he went was to his old union, the Painters Union Local 86 in downtown Phoenix, where he was a member, where he had done his apprenticeship and was a fully paid up union member for the time that he was there. Walked in, asked them if they had any active job sites he could join, and they told him, unfortunately, no. But in their hall was me. I was running a Get Out the Vote campaign, phone bank, in the Painters Union Hall in 2020. And we were hiring folks. We were hiring, any young people, retired folks, union members who weren't on the job at the time, including someone like him. So he needed a job, so went back there, introduced himself to me, and we got him set up. Sat him down in front of a Set him down in front of one of our laptops, gave him a flip phone, and immediately he told me, I don't have an email address. He hadn't used a flip phone and was unfamiliar with a laptop. But that's not going to stop me from helping someone out there. So it took a while to train him. I could tell he felt a little out of his depth. It's fine. It's a little scary sometimes to not only talk about politics, but to call up a stranger on the phone and say, hey, do you want to talk about politics to me? But Chris is a union man, so he had the job to do, and he did it, learned it. And I could tell he had some doubts, but every couple of days he would walk up to me and say, hey, this person, why did you support him? Why did you endorse them? And I would explain, they came in and they said that they want to support working people in Arizona, they want to strengthen labor law, or they have history of it in whatever office that they currently hold. There were other things on the ballot, like ballot propositions, and I'd say, we want to stick up for public education. We want to make sure it's fair and easy for folks to vote. He asked a lot of great questions, which I'm happy to talk to anyone about if they have a real honest question, want to have that conversation. And I could tell he wasn't just trying to get out of work. He wasn't trying to gotcha me on any of these things. He was actually curious. And a couple of times, he would actually come up and say, I have to leave because if I don't make it to Bible study on time, they'll kick me out of my home. He was surprised, and I would say, go right ahead. Why would I ever say no? Obviously he didn't know me. But one day I came into the hall, and folks came in, and one of the staff at the Painters Union Hall said Chris wouldn't be coming back in anymore because they'd found him a job, applying his trade that he'd learned through the Painters Union out on a construction site. So he wasn't going to be coming in anymore. I was happy. You don't go through an apprenticeship, you don't put your faith in a union that way just to go be making phone calls with me, Eventually, of course, Election Day 2020 rolls around, and in the middle of the chaos of everything, someone says, hey, Chris is outside. He came in to pick something up, and he's just outside smoking a cigarette. So, sure, walked out, and there he is, wearing a high-visibility vest. He's wearing a long-sleeve shirt, jeans, really solid work boots, and he's got a hard hat. I felt like I was walking into a commercial, we're just chatting, and first thing he says to me, hey, I'm sorry I couldn't come back to the hall. And again, why would you apologize for going to work, doing what you were trained to do, what you educated yourself to do, what you went to the union for? We chatted some more, and he said, before I went in, I wasn't sure about this voting stuff. I didn't really believe in it. But after the time with the campaign, as soon as his probation ends, he's going to get his rights back just so that he could register to vote. And I don't think I need to tell anyone in this room that forgiveness is a really powerful thing. And forgiveness, atonement, these are things that all of our religions have in common. Not just that we separated him from society for 10 years. He could have come out of there bitter, mean, and not wanting to participate at all. And here he is saying, not only does he want to be part of it, he wants to vote. Thank you, everybody, and happy Labor Day.
As the ushers come forward now to take up the collection, I expect you 1%ers to dig deep and make the collection plate runneth over. And if you're joining us from home, we have ways of making it easier for you that you should see on the screen there, online ways or through the mail. For the rest of you who give as you are able, we thank you for your generosity.
I was asked to introduce the next song. It's called Solidarity Forever. It's an old Union song, goes back about 100 years. The melody is even older. The lyrics were written during a time when there was a great deal of labor strife in the mines in the Appalachian regions, but the melody goes back to the Civil War and even before that. And I like this song because it's a reminder to me that the Civil War, this defining conflict in American history, was itself about labor. So, thank you.
Please rise in body or spirit. This is to the tune, as Joe said, Battle Hymn of the Republic, and we're going to start with the chorus, and then we're going to get through the verses. Gusto, remember? Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong. The union's inspiration through the workers' blood show up. There can be no power greater anywhere beneath the sun. Yet what force on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one? But the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong. It is we who plowed the prairies, built the cities where they trade, dug the mines and built the workshops and the smiles that world are made. Now we stand outcast and starving midst the wonders we have made, but the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong. Taken untold millions that they never told to end, but with our brain and muscle, not a single wheel can turn. We can break their haughty power, gain our freedom when we learn that the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong.
Go ahead and be seated. We'll close with the words of Brazilian philosopher Paulo Freire, followed by one more song. Looking at the past must only be a means of understanding more clearly what and who we are, so that we can more wisely build the future.
We're going to sing From This House to the World. Let us go hand in hand. Please rise in body or spirit. From this house to the world, we will go hand in hand. From this house to the world,
please say together with me the closing words. We extinguish this chalice, so another, and this community remains. May its light guide us this week as we walk the path of justice, speak words of love, and fill our world with compassion until we meet again. I hope you go forward and have a wonderful week, whether you labor or leisure or a nice healthy mix of both. Go in peace.
Good morning. Are we
Good
going
morning.
to?
Good morning, Leon.
Well, good morning. Hi.
Hi, everybody. Oh, we are.
Are we chatting with the congregation also, or?
Have no idea.
You just have to mind your P's and Q's.
No idea.
Yes, right.
Or T's and
Tia.
S's. I don't know. Hello. Hola. ¿Qué tal?
Hola.
Okay, hello, everybody.
Don't we always mind our P's and Q's?
No, it's more like Q's and P's.
Yeah, I know. Well, just gotta pick your letters.
Well, does anyone know what the meaning of that is, or the origin of mind your P's and Q's?
No, do you?
I
Tell
do.
us.
I do.
Oh.
I'm a graphic designer, and I've done letter press with individual little metal letters, like
Oh,
like Gutenberg Bible kind of thing. So in the tray, when you put the letters on the platform to be printed, they're in reverse, in mirror image. So when the paper goes down, it comes up and it's right reading. But when you look at it, it's backwards. So P's and Q's get very mixed up.
Good for you. It's sort of like stone lithography.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Any printmaking is in reverse, but when it's news, wording, of course, it's.
But I would think they would have used
more
B's
difficult.
and D's because the Q's have the little serif or whatever it is at the bottom that makes it look a little different. I think if, whereas B and D are identical except just flipped. I don't know. Am I wrong?
No, that's good. Let's start saying that and see if anybody
see if it catches on.
Well, that's my grades in college, right?
Or if you're a smart kid and you write backwards, right? All of a sudden you're vindicated. It's not like you're behind.
Yes.